The State of Crypto is presented by Tron, connecting the world to the power of cryptocurrency.
Time to check in with CoinDesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who is also editor of CoinDesk State of Crypto newsletter. Hey, Nick.
Good morning and happy Friday.
Happy last Friday of 2022. So speaking of last things, the Bahamian Securities Commission, they've taken custody of, what is it, like $3.5 billion of crypto assets. What are they doing with it? And what's this with the Supreme Court saying they're going to decide when and how it's going to all go out? I explain this whole thing.
Yeah, so this is based on statements sent out by the Securities Commission of the Bahamas last night. Basically, we've talked a couple times about the jurisdictional fight between the U.S. and the Bahamas in terms of how the respective, entities are going through their bankruptcy processes. And this kind of feels like another step in that particular battle. So last night what happened was the SCB put out a statement saying that it had secured $3.5 billion with cooperation from Sam Bankman-Fried, the former CEO and founder of FTX, after the hack last month and the company's bankruptcy process to begin with. And right now, what they're looking for is direction from the Supreme Court of the Bahamas on how exactly the joint provisional liquidators, which is to say the heads in the Bahamas entity, should be sharing information and resources with the U.S. heads. So that would be John Ray III, former Enron executive, and his team. And going back to some of the hearings we've had, there has been a pretty long simmering not feud exactly, but very healthy disagreement between the joint provisional liquidators in the Bahamas and the bankruptcy folks in the U.S. So just, who exactly should be controlling FTX, its assets, its resources, its data. And there have been questions about whether or not, the joint provisional liquidators in the Bahamas should be able to access some of the data that they say they need from the U.S. entities. And I assume now we're going to start seeing questions from the U.S. entities about accessing the assets that the Bahamas entities have been able to secure.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because obviously the Bahamas, surprisingly are their own country. I guess, people just think it's a suburb of Miami. No, it's not. So it'll be interesting to see if, who knows, maybe they'll just allocate the $3.5 billion. You think they'll allocate it just to Bahamian citizens and be like, sorry, Yankees, too bad? I mean, is that the ultimate fear, or is it just that it'll take too long?
I assume there's going to be some kind of compromise eventually, because it sounds like there is a lot for both parties to gain by being cooperative. So my guess is we're not going to see any kind of full scorched earth type tactics at this point, but it's still early in the bankruptcy process, which is also the other thing to remember is that these processes drag out for years. If you look at Mt. Gox, they're still going through it, and that literally happened years and years ago. So, well, this is going to take a while. It's going to be, it's going to require a lot of thoughtful, discussion and dialogue. We're not going to see anything anytime soon.
Well, that'll keep a lot of people employed in the crypto reporting business. But speaking of which, the CoinDesk policy team is taking a closer look at the issues and topics that could be in the spotlight next year. All right. So, what are the key things? The themes that you guys are looking at here for 2023?
Yeah, so, I polled the team. We've got a number of different things we're looking at. In the U.S. especially, we're looking at a lot of these bankruptcy cases that have been, we've seen a number of companies file for bankruptcy this year, and they're starting to raise really novel questions about things like customer privacy and protection. If you're a user of a crypto exchange that filed for bankruptcy, chances are in the bankruptcy court, there's a discussion about whether or not your name, your personal identifying information, your holdings perhaps, should be released to the court and therefore to the wider public, or whether that information should be redacted, which is obviously not something I think most crypto users are thinking about when they're signing up for an exchange or a lender. Looking at the SEC, SEC Chair Gary Gensler has said, for years now at this point, for 2 years, that he believes the SEC has the authority it needs to oversee crypto, and that the law is clear about which cryptos should be securities, which in his view are most of them. And more recently, we're starting to see officials with the SEC, such as Enforcement Director Gurpreet Verwal, say that, quote, the runway, I think, is shrinking. So they're kind of signaling that they might actually start cracking down on these crypto exchanges for not registering as securities platforms. And next year, might be the year we see some of this actually take place. We're looking for legislation, whether or not Congress is going to actually pass any laws and say, okay, well, we're going to regulate stablecoins, or we're going to regulate, crypto trading platforms. It might happen. I think the stablecoin bill seems to be the best bet so far, but it doesn't look quite as likely just yet. It seems it's going to take a while. Around the world, we're looking at just kind of regulation more broadly. Europe's markets and crypto assets legislation. We're looking at India's taxes. We're looking at, South Korea's new president and how, that country might regulate or change its regulation of crypto. So it's going to be a busy year. I can say that already 2 days out.
I was going to ask what you think the biggest event will be this coming year, but you know what? That would be crazy. Like, did anybody anticipate this past year? No. I mean, some of us might have had a hint that there might have been a problem with Terra Luna. There might have been a problem with FTX. I don't know. But the magnitude, I think, surprised a lot of people, except for a few of the hardcore. Look, everyone has an opinion, so somebody's bound to be right. But otherwise, I think the majority of these, it's just impossible to predict. Unless you have some amazing one thing that you think is definitely happening in 2023. What, Nick, you got it or no?
I would say my one thing is we're going to get a lot of, excitement for some regulatory aspect, and then it's going to get pushed down the road. Honestly, this isn't to diss, regulators or lawmakers. Obviously regulating, coming up with some new regulation is going to be a complex process, but this year has felt like the year of, unresolved promises, right? We've heard so much about either certain legislative packages or certain regulatory, pushes. And now here we are, it's December, 30th? And they haven't really come to fruition. It's just more looking at, okay, well, things might happen soon. So, I think for the crypto industry, probably the important aspect there is to just continue engaging with their regulators and lawmakers and, perhaps not fighting them on Twitter as much. But, it seems like regulators will listen and take meetings if you try and hold those meetings. So, who knows? Maybe there's something to gain for them.
I mean, that Sam Bankman-Fried has definitely proved you can get meetings. But good luck getting them off Twitter, because that's, they seem, you're 20-something, you seem to know everything.